Hey, as you can probably tell, this is my first video of this kind. If you didn't read the title, basically this is a rewrite / what if for Disventure Camp All-Stars. Instead of the random team picks, I divided them by brains versus beauty versus bronze, and this video will follow how the game would play out. This is how I believe the teams would be divided. Admittedly, there is the small problem that we won't be able to see much of Gret and Yul's storyline. Anyways, in the first challenge, Gabby could win for the beauties and the bronze would have no problem handling the animals. Before the elimination, Alec and Fiore would have to get over their past and vote together, both having a grudge against Miriam. Gret wouldn't complain about writing her name down, while James and Tess likely see her as a challenge liability. Without Miriam to sabotage, the bronze would be able to win the lake challenge with ease. And even with Fiore being a liability, James and Alec could probably pick up the slack. At this point, Alec would probably be getting into Jake's head and put a wedge between him and Aiden. For the elimination, Ellie and Gabby would likely be targeting Jake, while Yul and Jake target Gabby. Rhea and Aiden target each other while the other two duos both desperately try to get them to compromise. While Aiden is adamant on targeting Rhea, which Jake and Yul do not go along with, Ellie and Gabby eventually give in and vote with Rhea, sending Aiden home. The bronze would have no problem winning the challenge as usual. Hunter and Ally would have their fight, but will be supported by Connor and Ashley. Tom would also see this and consider fixing his own relationship with Jake. Meanwhile, Alec comes up with the villains alliance, pulling in James along with all the usual members. In the challenge, Alec doesn't even need to throw as Fiore sucks hard enough for the brains to just use regularly. Tess and James both want Fiore gone because of her poor challenge performance, but Alec insists on keeping the villain's numbers strong. James ends up voting with Tess against Fiore, knowing that Tess gets out either way. This sends a message to Alec that James isn't as loyal as he would like. Word of the villains alliance never gets out, leaving Gabby, Jake, and all of the bronze completely in the dark. In the challenge, Hunter still gets hurt, but for this rewrite, let's say his injury is more serious, being a broken leg. The bronze are already behind due to Hunter's injury in the bike portion. While Tom and Lake can make up lost time in the swimming part, it's all up to Connor and Ally in the foot race. It's at this point that Rhea takes the chance to break up with Connor. His emotional distraught, giving Fiore enough time to catch up and win the challenge. At the bronze camp, Ashley, Lake, and Tom all consider taking out Hunter on account of his injury, but Ally is able to flip Ashley and Lake, convincing them that Connor's connection to Rhea cost them the challenge and will cost them more in the future. Seeing how Hunter and Ally were able to work through a problem in their relationship, Tom is inspired to confront Jake, but he doesn't know when the right time would be. At the challenge, Gret's singing and James' experience would secure a win for the brains, while the bronze would end up writing a song for Tom and Jake, with Tom as the lead singer. When Jake catches on that the lyrics are about him, he wants to talk to Tom, but isn't given the chance to because his team is up next. Rhea and Yul's fighting and poor stage management would still cost their team the win. The teams are sent back to their camps immediately, not letting Jake and Tom talk. The villains strategize about who to boot, where Yul and Rhea both think booting Gabby is the best option. Ian threatens Ellie that if she doesn't vote for Gabby, he'll get Jake to instead. At the elimination and stuck between a rock and a hard place, Ellie ends up exposing the villains alliance to Jake and Gabby. Amidst the chaos, Jake votes for Ellie while Yul votes for Gabby. Rhea ends up flipping to Ellie's side, and their 3 votes send Yul home. Jake and Gabby are both upset by the revelation of the villains alliance. They confront Ellie together, leaving Jake mad and Gabby feeling betrayed. At the challenge, Jake and Tom talk out their relationship and get back on good terms. During their conversation, Jake lets the secret of the villains alliance slip, exposing it to the whole bronze tribe. With everyone in the game knowing about the threat the villains pose, the bronze agree to target the brains tribe in an effort to send a villain home. The brains end up losing the challenge, though Hunter's injury nearly costs it for the bronze. Gret and James both want to send home Fiore as she's causing them a losing streak. Alec fights hard to send James home instead, but eventually gives in and votes for Fury just to keep the numbers strong going forwards. Ellie and Gabby talk things out about the villains alliance, and not much happens on the Brawns team. On the Brawns, however, both duos are desperately trying to get Ashley on their side, with Hunter's injury only becoming more and more of a liability. Everyone knows it was only a matter of time until they lost again. In the 1v1v1 part of the challenge, Hunter, James, and Rhea all fight to get to their escape pods, Rhea and James coming out on top. Because Hunter is unable to climb the ladder, Ashley is put in the middle, having to decide between her friendship with Ally or what's best for the game. Hunter and Ally both target Tom due to his connection to Jake on the other team. At the elimination, Ashley decides on keeping her friendship with Ally and sends Tom home. Once Tom leaves, Lake shuns Ashley for putting their team in a bad spot. I'll save you the explanation to why the Brawns would lose the challenge, as you could probably assume. The Brains, however, would lose as all of the beauties are playing especially hard to not go to another elimination. With Ellie and Gabby still in a rocky spot, and Jake and Rhea both having their own motivations and grudges, no one wants to go to the elimination. For the joint elimination, the Brains are able to flip Lake, not only because of her connection to James, but because she's on the bottom of her team if nothing changes. Ashley is a bit upset at her elimination, but gets over it quickly and wishes her team good luck, as well as warning the villains to watch their backs. A few important things at this point in the game. The idol is already hidden and the contestants were informed of it. Gabby and Ellie are still going through a tough spot, and Rhea has been bending over backwards to ensure a wedge stays between them. Jake is also no help, seeing it as revenge for Ellie playing with his relationship with Tom in Season 1. Hunter's injury has been getting better, but it still hinders him in most challenges. The villains alliance consists of Ellie, Alec, Rhea, Gret, and James. James and Ellie both not totally loyal, but are staying with it due to deals made with Alec. Jake and Ally do not hate each other, but Jake does hold a small grudge for the duo voting off Tom. Alec wins the immunity challenge like usual. Hunter and Ally both want James gone as they know the kind of threat he is from Season 2. Lake is opposed to this and suggests voting for Ellie instead, which Jake happily agrees to. Gabby, not wanting to vote for her girlfriend, decides to tell Ellie that Lake was gunning for her. Ellie then gets the rest of the villains to vote together with Gabby, but James refuses to vote for Lake. Alec is finally sick of James' lack of commitment to the alliance and decides to put together a secret blindside to kick James. James tries to warn the heroes that they need to vote together or one of them is going, but Lake and Jake refuse to compromise. At the elimination, a huge fight breaks out between Ellie, Lake, and Ally. In the commotion, the votes are split, and Ally ends up out by only receiving 3 of 10 votes. Also, Connor wins the comeback like canon cause, there's no reason to bring back anyone else. Connor and Rhea both have immunity from the comeback while Alec has immunity from winning the challenge. Even with Connor to lead the heroes, they still need another vote to send a villain packing. Connor convinces Jake to get over his grudge with Ellie and talk things out with her. Jake actually manages to get through to Ellie, and we get to see their friendship again. He also gives her guidance on how to fix things with Gabby using his own experience from Tom earlier this season. Lake ends up finding an immunity totem and shares the knowledge with James. While the heroes target Rhea, Lake and James side with the villains, eliminating Hunter just as his leg starts to heal enough to be a challenge threat. Jake and Connor believe it was Gabby who flipped on them to work with Ellie, effectively dissolving the heroes alliance for good. Still mad about Gabby's alleged flipping, Jake and Connor target Gabby in the challenge, also resulting in the two of them winning immunity. Ellie, not knowing that Connor and Jake assumed Gabby flipped, goes to Jake for the vote and is met with him acting rude and cold to her. Ellie, shocked by the random change, goes back to fighting with Jake, and the two are at odds again. Alec decides the villains have the numbers to turn on themselves, and he gets Gret, Rhea, Ellie, and Gabby to target James. When Lake and James catch wind of this, they play their idol for James and cast their 2 votes for Ellie. With there now being a tie between Gabby and Ellie, Ellie forfeits the tiebreaker so her girlfriend can still have a chance to win. Jake and Connor are still oblivious to James and Lake controlling the game. Really not much happens in this episode except for the eliminations being exposed. Alec and Rhea lose the challenge by far, being unable to properly do any of the dances. Rhea ends up performing worse when judged by Crystal and is out of the game. Gabby also holds a grudge against James and Lake for eliminating Ellie. She feels totally alone in this game with Ellie gone, Jake and Connor gunning for her and no other allies. It's at this point she starts to bond with Gret. Yul is already long gone, so their arc isn't as focused on leaving the toxic relationship and more centered on helping Gret love herself and recover from Yul. Gret finds the second immunity totem and shares that knowledge with Gabby, as well as using it to pull in Jake and Connor as allies. In the immunity contest, it would come down to James and Jake, but James would win. Alec is having trouble deciding which duo he wants to move forward with. He knows no matter who he sides with, he'll end up being the third wheel, but he doesn't have a choice. James and Lake can tell they're in a bad spot, so they go to Gret and Gabby hoping to get their votes, but they refuse. At the elimination, James gives up his immunity to Lake, hoping that she would have a better chance of winning and deserve to make it farther in the game. Unfortunately, all this did was switch the vote from Lake to James and eliminate him. This would play out almost identical to the episode. Gret wins immunity and majority decides to kick Alec. Alec initially tries to work with Lake and eliminate one of the duos, but Lake votes against him, knowing she'll be in a more powerful position as the sole swing vote. I don't know what the challenge is, so ill just say Lake wins for fun. When both duos come to her for her vote, Lake ultimately decides to vote with the boys against Gret and Gabby. Gret gets nervous and ends up playing her idol for Gabby, which was a correct play, and sent Connor packing for the second time. While the two are relieved, they're both mad that Lake would betray them. Jake wins immunity, and Lake is able to convince him it would be dangerous to keep Gabby and Gret together with the finale so soon. In the tiebreaker, Lake beats Gret and fully eliminates the Brawns tribe, as well as every original member of the Villains Alliance. Anyways, I assume the finale would be a jury vote to win, and these are how I predict they would vote. That brings to an end my disventure camp rewrite. This is my first time experimenting with this kind of content, so if you'd like to see more, please tell me.
Yeah. Okay, love you guys. Don't forget to smile.